is up with the squad? It's Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies in the building. Y'all know what it is. We got Political Lil in here. It's PoliSports Tea Time. We ain't been around in a minute, but we got to get to the education because it's some stuff going on. So y'all coming in the door, hit the like and the share. They both right there. Like and the share. They both right there. Let's get into it. Let's get into this. Blackballed but paid. The Chennedy Carter question. We put 2 episodes out on this one, so I hope y'all had a chance to check it out. If you haven't, please check it out. Miracle Rider, what's good, fam? Y'all welcome into PoliSports Tea Time. Y'all know what it is, and I need to start reminding folks that this space is intentional. It's not clip chasing. It's no side picking. It's no noise pretending to be analysis. This is our opening episodes for 1 and 2 of Blackballed but paid. The Chennedy Carter question. And sitting with a harder reality, I think what happens when talent is undeniable, but the story surrounding it is already decided. That's what we want to talk about here. And this was never just about one player. This is about, and so we understand that this isn't about one player. This is just the case study, if you will, in this situation. This is about how athletes get translated into symbols, how reputations travel faster than the truth, and how a single moment can be stretched into a permanent judgment. Especially when the athlete is a Black woman who refuses to perform silence as gratitude. So even before we reach the incident, we got to start earlier than the headlines, the commentary, earlier than the label that grows louder than the player. How does a Black woman athlete become a problem before the public ever hears her voice? Before frustration gets contextualized, before humanity is considered. In professional sports, language doesn't just describe reality, it organizes it. So once a player is tagged difficult, toxic, locker room issue, not a fit, explanation disappears. Context disappears. Accountability disappears. The label does all the work. No group absorbs that pattern more consistently than Black women in sports, where tone is policed, emotion is surveilled, and confidence is too often recoded as threat. So what do we lose in that translation? What's erased in that translation is structure, instability, turnover, shifting expectations. So when environments fail, it's easier to individualize conflict than interrogate the system. It becomes a soft language that protects institutions from hard questions. So, and here's the fact that the narrative avoids. Chennedy Carter never stopped producing. She never stopped earning. She never stopped playing professional basketball. The unavoidable question enters the room is this: was the problem ever the player, or was it an environment that required her to become smaller than her talent? That's the work here. Not personality, not gossip, not verdict, structure. So to move us deeper into how an incident becomes a sentence and how sentence becomes careers, I got to bring in the voice that always tracks power beneath presentation. Political Lil. Let's start.
All right. Thank you, Auntie Cess. Welcome, fam, and we definitely appreciate you all being here and enjoy joining us in the conversation. And I want to be clear from the start. This is not a defense campaign. This is a narrative examination because moments don't become career defining, by accident or on their own. They made that way through repetition, through omission, through who is humanized and who is flattened. So even the hip check incident was really not about the contact, but it was about how quickly the context of the whole incident was kind of stripped away. So once a clip is isolated, it stops being about a basketball player and it becomes a character test. So not about what happened, but who she is. And when that question gets asked often enough, the answer it really depends on the player's participation. So what I'm saying here is narratives, they don't just describe athletes, they also discipline them. And they determine who gets grace, who gets protection, and who absorbs that backlash so that the system can remain comfortable. So for Black women athletes, that process is especially dangerous, as Cess alluded to, because their actions are read, as dispositional and not situational. So one incident becomes evidence of who they are, not what occurred. And once that framing gets locked in, it travels with them everywhere they go. And then the media coverage to the fan perception, to front office decisions, they quietly shape these opportunities the athlete may have. They either give them access or they put them in exile. So that's how this one moment, kind of becomes silent. So listen, now that we kind of laid the foundation of how that problem gets made and how the incident becomes a judgment, you know, we're going to slow the conversation down and talk about what actually happened before the narrative kind of took over. Cess, go ahead and take us into the first discussion.
Now, I think before we go academic, before we go political, before we turn up the temperature, I want to start simple. A lot of people didn't meet Chennedy Carter through headlines. They met her through her buckets. And I got a question in the chat. Y'all let me know. Did you first learn about Chennedy Carter through her game or through a headline? Put game or headline in the chat for me. Put game and headline in the chat. And Lil, you one of these people. You didn't catch her through a viral clip or somebody else's commentary. You got to see her live, right? NCAA tournament the poll. You saw her again in 2024, right there in Chicago with the Sky. So before we even go to the labels, before we touch the issues, I want to anchor this in what can't be argued with, and that's the eye test. So, Leo, if you don't mind, before I get into that, not the narrative, not the discourse, your first time that you saw Chennedy Carter in college, was she a hooper? What did your eyes tell you about Chennedy?
Lord have mercy, who in the hell is this? I first saw her in the NCAA tournament when they were playing against DePaul. You know, DePaul is a Chicago team. Mm-hmm. And she was electric. I mean, this girl had speed, confidence, shot creation. I mean, she was straight out blowing the place up. And so I was like, God, who is this person? Because I kind of halfway pay attention to college basketball. You know, I'm not watching every game, this, that, and the other. So when she came up, I was like, oh, man, this girl's light, fast, in, out. I mean, they couldn't do nothing with her. She was smoking out there. So that was the first time I ever came across her. Then when she was getting picked up by Chicago, I was just floored. I said, oh, man, she gonna tear it up. Now, I remember her kind of being at Atlanta, and then I remember she went to LA, and you know, something. But I really wasn't paying attention to that because my relationship with her came purely on the basketball court because I hadn't seen a guard like her probably since Cooper. I mean, that just had every skill you could want, and then was electrifying enough that you would want to take the time to watch her. She's the type of player you want to watch. We appreciate y'all rocking with the live. Y'all hit the like and share. They both right there. Twin, it's my birthday, twin. Happy birthday, twin. Jacob on the dime, man. Happy birthday, fam. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, fam. Happy birthday. I appreciate you pulling up on my birthday party yesterday, fam. Appreciate you all. Love. Enjoy your day. I had to get that out, y'all. I had to get that out. It's Aquarius thing. But and thank you for sharing that, Leo, because I think that gets lost. Like we get so caught up in what the people posted, what they TikTok said, so the first place that you really meet most of these ladies is just in between the lines and what they're able to produce on the court. So I see Miss D in the chat. Let's put Coleman. I see Big Coleman in the chat. Coach Coleman in the chat. Let's put the receipts on the table real quick though. This is a top 4 draft pick. It's an offense. It's not no project. It's not a gamble, right? So this is where the question really, the real question start doing that work. Thank you all. Appreciate you too, political. All right, Jay. How do we go from future of the league to locker room problem? Seemed like almost overnight. When the basketball never disappeared. But see, the patience disappeared. They ran out of patience with this woman. The talent didn't evaporate. The story just got rewritten around her and about her. And that's where the phrase lands: blackballed but paid. Not unemployed, not incapable, not out of the game, just inconvenient to a system that prefers its stars polished, packaged, and quiet. So this ain't about whether Chennedy Carter is perfect. It's about why imperfect becomes a career sentence for some and a development chapter for others. Let me be clear here, especially for the chat. This narrative autopsy is I want to keep the focus on that. We're not trying to defend Chennedy because I've heard a lot out in the YouTube streets about what she deserved and she did something to so and so and so and so. You know, and we're not asking like, has she ever made a mistake? You know, of course she's made mistakes. Why does those mistakes become a career story? Because mistakes, you know, they don't usually put you in exile, you know, like that. And especially having conflict with a teammate. I think that's very common in all sports, you know, that you occasionally have locker room flare-ups or problems with the, you know, with somebody on the team. And then the things that I heard the conflict was about, I see these two people having conflicts with other people, you know. So I'm like, and you know, even though the young lady from Los Angeles, Miss, I think it was Cambridge, she's out the league. You know, the other person she had a problem with, which was I think Courtney Williams. You know, she's in the league, you know, still bumping heads with other people.
And let's be clear, Leo, not to cut you off. Courtney's still working, and you can say what you want about Liz Cambage. Liz Cambage still just a working. Yeah. And for as much as they act like Liz was some kind of big problem, Liz be at any WNBA game she want to be at, and they make sure that they show you that she is there. Okay, so it's really interesting. It's really interesting how these women who are labeled as problems or whatever go on to be successful in other leagues. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to point that out because I thought that was interesting. They're such a problem, but they find success in other places. Go ahead.
No. The thing is, you just have never, I mean, the way she's being treated, to me, the poison that's been spreaded among the GMs of other teams and things like that, you know, I'm trying to figure out who throat she cut, you know, who head she went upside with a bat, you know, this, that, and the other, because there's no reason this young lady shouldn't be in the league because of what she could contribute to the league. I mean, when she was in Chicago, we were, you know, I got to go see her for the first time live. I mean, I made it my business to go see her play. Chicago loved Chennedy Carter. You know, people could say what they want, but they were very enthusiastic about her being here. She did have a feature story in one of the major papers, you know, but for her to be pushed out the way she did, I thought it was, you know, pretty problematic and just really unfair, you know. But, and then I don't know, it don't seem like it's a way for her to kind of come back, you know, the way it's kind of looking now, especially what happened with her with Jeff adding fuel to the fire by not, you know, re-signing her. When I'm still to this day trying to figure out, well, what did she do in Chicago before some alleged tweet about Angel Reese and some layup drills, you know, that got her. I mean, she was the leading scorer of the team, you know, and you know, a solid contributor. And I had never heard any rumors of discord, and I'm here on the ground. You know, I hadn't heard it, but you know, of course I'm not on every social media, you know, outlet, but you know, I just thought that was kind of odd, you know, for them to put that narrative out there and for that to kind of have to stick with her in a sense.
Exactly, and I mean, listen, and we gonna get into it. And like I asked y'all let us know. I want y'all as y'all coming in the door, hit the like and the share. They both right there, but also get in the chat. And let me know. Did you first find out about Kennedy's game from a headline or game? Game or headline in the chat. That's a running thing today. As you come in, let us know. Game or headline. How did you learn about Chennedy Carter? And we're gonna trace a narrative from college star to draft asset to problem. Okay, problem with air quotes to paid but pushed out. And the question that we set with in the first episode of our series is, when did the story stop being about basketball? And we're gonna talk a little bit when that shift happened. So we go on Chennedy Carter's WNBA path. It's short. I ain't gonna hold y'all up. It's short. It's short, but it ain't random. Okay, it's short. It's short. Listen, I won't argue. You won't get an argument there. But it's not random. Atlanta, then Los Angeles, then Chicago. It looked like Instability followed her, right? like she's the common denominator. But the framing is so convenient, Lil, because it keeps the camera on the player movement and off the environment she's moving through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, instability was already in the building. Now I'm unstable, but I walked in on some unstable shit anyway. It was shaky when I got here. It was rocky when I got here. Y'all act like it was all good in here, and I came here and then the ground got to move. But no, I walked into this whirlwind and it was already a ring around the rosy going on. So because that instability was already in the building, and when I say instability, I'm talking about coaching turnover. I'm talking about shifting philosophies, leadership resets, roster whiplash. When the foundation is moving, a young guard isn't just learning the league. She's learning a new definition of what right looks every few months. If you ever been on a new job, sometimes you come in and you don't really know who to be cool with. A lot of people walk up to you, but you don't know, should I be cool with you? Is you the office snake? Is you really the welcoming crew? If I hook up with you, what does that look like for me outside of here? I got to be able to walk in and read the room sometime. But every time she moved, the same language moved with her. Fit, chemistry, locker room. They sound neutral, but they're not. Them words not neutral. They're the league's cleanest way to explain discomfort without admitting dysfunction. So before we even get into how the language gets assigned, I need for you to set the frame with the stuff organizations never get pinned to the wall for. You know, you didn't watch this league enough to know young players don't develop in a vacuum. So talk to me. What are the factors that shape a young player's trajectory that teams rarely get called out for? Why do these players end up absorbing the fallout for organizational failure?
You know, this is where power shows itself. See, these organizations, they get protected because they're institutions. You know, they had these PR teams, media relationships, league influence. I mean, you see it in Chicago going on and on. So when something goes wrong, the narrative instinctively looks down. It doesn't look up. You know, these young players, especially Black women, they don't have that installation. They're expected to adjust instantly. You know, you look at how Angel Reese has just walked into the most raggedy situation that a player could walk into. Young, you know, mentally draining, disorganized, dysfunctional, you know, them putting eyeballs on her when they now facing a lawsuit from one of the investors for failure to do anything other than, you know, put in a money grab. So they can't, they want these Black athletes, you know, these young athletes come in, new systems, new coaches, new roles, and they want you to instantly adjust without any consistency of support. Because if you think about it, the Chicago Sky instantly created an unstable situation for these young ladies. Carter was new, Reese was new, Cardoso was new, and for you to put those sharp athletes, I mean, these athletes that could build you a championship, for you to put them in an instantly unstable environment, you know, I thought was really cruel, and all it was, you know, a little power play. So these organizations are unstable, and conflict is going to be inevitable. But instead of naming instability, you know, the system are personalized, and so the player becomes the issue, not the environment that failed to provide them the structure. And you all know that that's not accidental. That's what we call political protection.
Absolutely. And so when we start talking about it in that manner, right, that's where the protection show up. Not in the press release, but in how the chaos get translated. Atlanta, turnover. Los Angeles, transition. Identity shifts. New voices trying to steer a franchise midstream. Chicago, a reset. Then another reset. Then another reset. Just reset. And every time the leadership change, so do the rules. And I'm not talking about the written ones. I'm talking about the real ones. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They got the written rules, and then they got the rules that people really go by. The unwritten rules. The culture of the situation. Expectation shift. Role shift, leash length shifts, who gets benefit of the doubt shifts. But the player is still expected to produce like the ground under her feet never moved, like nothing changed. So when frustration shows up in that context, it rarely gets framed as situational. It gets framed as who she is.
Mm-hmm.
That's how development quietly turns into disqualification. Here's the part folks don't like because it interrupts the easy storyline. Chennedy Carter has no formal disciplinary record in the WNBA. Not that I could find. I didn't find a suspension. I didn't find a fine. I didn't find league action. Am I tripping? Y'all let me know. But she's discussed like somebody who crossed official lines. Like there's a paper trail when there isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Am I tripping? That tells you we're not dealing with enforcement. We're dealing with reputation governance, the unofficial kind. See, when Crystal Bradford got ready to come back in the league, y'all remember what they said? You owe us some time, homie. You owe us a suspension. Remember, Crystal had to sit down. Crystal was back in practice this year in Las Vegas. She thought she was in the clear. She had left the league, came back, got signed. They said, you still owe us some time for that suspension that we gave you before you left. And it was to the point that Courtney tried to speak up for her and say, hey, you know, it wasn't that big a deal. Time to pass. Let her go to come back in without no suspension. No, they said, you got to pay the cost. You got to pay that cost. I can't find no fines, no suspensions, no league actions against Chennedy Carter. Nothing official. No real paper trail. So we're dealing with reputation governance. That's the unofficial kind. The manage you out kind of governance. That quiet manage you out. They gonna just keep doing what do they do it? Review. Yearly reviews, annual reviews, quietly putting you out. And it ain't even, they don't have a write-up on you, but they just keep dinging you on your write-ups till they can push you out, managing you out. That brings us to the moment everybody name drops, like it's self-explanatory. The Courtney Williams situation in the Los Angeles locker room. That one gets cited a lot, but rarely examined. What gets erased is the most important part. Conflict happened in every locker room. Multiple players tied to that situation have other documented disputes before and after Chennedy. But those moments didn't become their identity. They stayed moments. They stayed the situation. They stayed survivable. So the real question isn't what happened. It's why did that incident harden into a permanent label for her and remain situational for others? Go ahead, Lil.
You know what? Conflicts in locker rooms, come on, y'all. It's not rare. You know, especially in these high-pressured transitional teams, new players coming in and out. You don't have relationships with them. You know, this, that, and the other. You getting to know people. Oh, you can holler at this one, but you holler at that one, they may go off. So a conflict shouldn't disqualify a player, you know, and the perception that she has some conflict with somebody else, you know, it has nothing to do with each situation that the person is going to. You know, but because of that, she's already perceived as expendable. So, you know, other players get coached and then they get mitigated. You know, some players get framed as competitive or passion. But for Chennedy, she got framed as a problem. And that difference tells us, I don't think the story was really about behavior. I think it was about value and comfort. That's my take on it.
See, and I think it was about do what I tell you. She was like, I don't do that. I laugh when it's funny. I dance when it's a song on our life. Other than that, I'm gonna be me and do what I do. And if that's too much for you, then figure that part out. Because I'm just here to hoop. Is it about hooping?
Yeah.
Is it about hooping? But let's take out the WNBA for a second. Let's take out the WNBA for a second. Because Chennedy Carter didn't stop hooping. She went overseas. And the chaos everybody swore followed her, he didn't make the trip. I don't know if it missed the plane, if he couldn't get a goddamn passport. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with chaos, okay? Chaos couldn't find her. I don't know if it wasn't a seat on the plane. I don't know what happened. Chaos could not follow Chennedy to no other country, no other league that she has went and played in. I ain't seen no chaos pop up. I done seen limos pop up. I done seen chips pop up. I done seen fans pop up. I done seen Instagram love go up. I ain't seen chaos show up yet. I don't know if it got lost in the luggage or what, but the chaos ain't there. And this is what pushed me to want to have this conversation. Because every time I say maybe Chennedy should be back, oh, she was a problem. Well, when?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's a when? How? When? What she do? What she say? When it happened? Let me see the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't never got one. It ain't no rolling locker room storyline. Ain't no endless character narrations. Ain't no think pieces auditioning the diagnosis. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing but basketball, production, and getting paid.
Yeah,
So,
paid for real.
You understand what I'm saying? Those leagues only care about on-court production as it should be. Well, I mean, you got to be a professional walking into any job that you got, but you're not gonna police me outside of what it is that what it is that I owe you as an employee or a part of your team or whatever it is. And then I'm also not gonna allow you to make me a problem with every team, whether it's corporate or commercial or residential or professional, whatever the team is. They all go through storming, norming, forming, whatever the things is. So you're gonna have some conflicts and some fallouts and some come to Jesus meetings as you get to it's us against the world. As you build that trust, you got to go through some things to know that I can trust you when we get in the foxhole. Oh, this how you move. This how you move. Storming, norming, forming. What's all the stages? Y'all know what I'm talking about. So if the problem doesn't travel with her, we have to ask what really means. What that really means. Because either she magically became a different human once she crossed the ocean, right? Or the problem was never her identity. It was the environment she was being asked to survive in. And I don't think that people understand that some of these environments that these women are playing in and being asked to survive in and smiling through are way more hostile than you have a clue that they are.
Yeah.
They in there just smiling. They're smiling for the brand. They're smiling for where it is that they're trying to go, where they're trying to put women's back, where they're trying to help push women's basketball too. But they're smiling through a lot of bullshit. We love Dawn Staley. Dawn Staley gets up and deals with bullshit every day as a black woman in a white male-dominated position at a PWI, where she is the standard of women's basketball right now. And she's dealing with bullshit every day. It ain't all roses for Drip every day.
And you don't get no rest. I mean, can you imagine how pressurized that is on the mind, on a person's emotion? I be trying to
figure out when do Dawn even sleep. Now she got to coach the game, practice the game, go over this team, see that team, meet about women basketball, do some NIL, go over here, go over there. You know, when do they rest? Other teams recognize her talent, and Chennedy Carter is by far very talented. She's been talented. And conflict is a part of the human condition. It is. And it's a part of a team. Some days you come and go to work with your team and you like, you know what? Oh, you done got on my nerves today. I'll see you tomorrow. It's all love. You done got on my nerves today, though. But I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. And if you ever been in a locker room, you know what she's saying is absolutely the truth.
I know people. People leave here and be like, I can't stand Cess. Got on my Cess. They got on my nerves today. I don't want to hear that shit. But they'll be back tomorrow because they know it's just all love. It's just all love. It's just a conversation. I'm not trying to change nobody. I'm not trying to police nobody. But that's why this conversation matters, because we litigate incidents and we have to track patterns. Before we accept labels, we have to ask who those labels protect, the player or the institution that doesn't want to explain itself. So let me ask y'all this. If the chaos didn't follow her overseas, what does that tell you about where the chaos actually live? Okay. So Chennedy Carter has no formal disciplinary record in the WNBA. Y'all let me know in the chat, just with a yes or no. With a yes or no. Did you know that before this evening? Did you know that before this evening? That there's no formal. You would think that Chennedy was like suspension city. You would think that Chennedy was like always just one game from suspension. You would think that Chennedy Carter had a Draymond Green type resume. The way they talk about her. The collective BS that Coach Staley has to go through daily is so targeted and biased that it doesn't even bother those people that they are persecuting a person just living their best life and helping others. Exactly. When has Dawn Staley ever attacked someone that didn't put her in the business first? She don't. They would Drip ain't about that. And then for the chat too, are you aware that other players involved in conflicts with Chennedy have had similar disputes with other teammates without carrying the same label? Like, and I don't want to pick on this person because I actually, for some reason, I don't know why, since they left Chicago, they have become one of my favorite people to watch. That goddamn Marina Mabry. Marina Mabry goes. Marina Mabry. And listen, I ain't gonna hold y'all up. Marina Mabry is one of my favorite people to watch now. I'm not even gonna hold y'all up. Marina cracks me up.
Yeah, very entertaining.
Her and Sanaya River are the duo that I didn't know I needed. But I also heard Marina Mabry talk about the fact, and I had and she very eloquently had an opportunity with the unrivaled cameras in front of her, had the opportunity to say that I'm using TikTok and stuff to show you all that the competitive, get after it, I'll fuck you up person that I am on the floor in between the lines is exactly not who I am. And that's why you can watch a game on Unrivaled and if y'all watch Unrivaled like I watch Unrivaled, Chennedy, and I mean, not Chennedy, Courtney and Mabry got into it. It got a little spicy in the game. And Mabry looked at Courtney and said, I'll fuck you up. And they, and Courtney looked and they separated and everything. And they asked Courtney during the game, trying to make it something. Oh, Courtney, we saw what Marina said. Courtney said, no, that's my dog. We hoop like that when the game matters. That's my people right there. That ain't nothing. This just a good run right now. That's just competition. That's just healthy competition between us. That's how we get now. But
playground talk.
Police that. Yeah, that's playground talk. We gonna go and drink some water together after this and go get something to eat. Y'all have to number one get y'all not y'all, but people have to number one get comfortable with the fact that women are competitive. Women are shit talkers. Women enjoy that back and forth clash in the games, but it doesn't have to turn into a scandal. It don't have to turn into this big deal. It can be over at the end of the game. Hey, yeah, Marina's a hooper. Marina is a hooper.
And she fit that Chicago. I mean, when they had TSpoon and you had the Angel Reese personality, that was a perfect fit with Mabry Kennedy because the girl is gritty tough. And Chicago had the reputation of being a gritty, tough team, and I dare say that had they left her in place, because remember, she done been the subject of asking for trades, and people, the front office done told her at other teams, you ain't going nowhere. You're gonna get out there and hoop till your contract up. Chicago could have did the same thing, but they wanted to break that team up, and they wanted to make sure that team was not successful.
Exactly. You love Crash Out Marina? Yeah, I'm watching the Crash Out jar right now. I'm watching the Crash Out jar right now. She cashing out in the Crash Out jar. Now, but getting back to Kennedy, right? And yeah, and seriously, I want to know if y'all are aware of other players involved in conflicts with Kennedy have had similar disputes, but they don't carry that same label. Aware or not aware? Put it in the chat for me. But once we establish the timeline doesn't support the myth, the next question becomes unavoidable. How did this one moment become a sentence? Let's go there. Let's fuck it. Let's go there. We got to talk about language, because in pro sports, words, and I tell you all the time, words matter. Words don't just report reality; they produce it. They set the terms. They decide who gets grace and who gets a file. So two labels have followed Chennedy Carter louder than any box score ever could. And Kennedy got some badass box scores out there now, for real. She done had some legendary performances. Locker room cancer and problem child. And sit with that for a minute. Because neither one of them is basketball language. Locker room cancer, problem child. Locker room cancer is one of the most violent phrases in sports culture. It doesn't mean conflict. It doesn't mean tension. It means contamination. So once you say it, you don't have to explain anything else, because the solution is already implied. Cut it out. It's a cancer. It ain't no cure for it. Cut it out. No context, no shared accountability, no question of who failed communication, just removal for the health of the team. See, and problem child hit different, but it's just as corrosive. It shrieks an adult into a misbehaving kid. Like, you would think Kennedy just around there throwing a goddamn tantrum all over the place. Kicking her legs, stomping her feet. Well, you won't let me play. They won't let me. They won't. That's what it gives. It turns boundaries into immaturity. It reframes frustration as character defect instead of a response to conditions. And so now the conversation is no longer what happened. Is what's wrong with her?
Mm-hmm.
It ain't even what happened. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with Kennedy? Kennedy tripping again? What's wrong with Kennedy? It turned into that. Oh, that's just Kennedy being Kennedy. You know how Kennedy is. You know, that type of shit happened. What makes both labels so effective is how vague they are, though, because they don't require no proof, no documentation. They don't even got to be accurate. They just need to be repeated.
Mm-hmm.
If you repeat it enough times, and this is where I be getting into getting on y'all about your social media currency, what you like, share, subscribe, comment, and hype. If you repeat it enough, it becomes the truth. You know, Kennedy, she a cancer in the locker room.
Hit the like button.
What she do? She just a cancer in the locker room. And then somebody will turn that into Chennedy Carter, cancer, and they get 90,000 views. And it's an AI video, and they ain't got shit to do with the goddamn girl name or nothing. Ain't gonna give you one piece of one fact. And you won't learn one thing about Kennedy that you didn't know. Matter of fact, when you listen to the video, you probably gonna hear about 8 or 9, 10 things that you know ain't even true. For a like, a click, and all that shit. What makes both? I guess what makes it? What makes both of those things dangerous? Once those words get planted, they move like a whisper campaign with a badge. Media, front offices, locker rooms, fans. Now the label become your resume, and and the resume become the verdict. No longer are they looking at how effective has she been. What's her points per game, her rebounds per game, her assists per game? How does she fit with the team? Does she defend well? Does she play hard on both sides of the ball? Can she play in the zone? Can she play man on man? Can she score at all three levels? Is she an on ball defender? Is she a good help side defender? We ain't talking about none of that. We're not talking about any of that. Let's talk about the politics of that, though, Lil. Why do these words end careers before the league ever have to show any paperwork, receipts, or anything? And more importantly, who gets labeled and who get coached?
You know what? Labels do a lot of labor. See, once a player is labeled, decision makers, they don't have to do the work of development. You know, they don't have to mediate any conflicts, and they don't have to own the failure. The label becomes their shortcut. And here's the key distinction. Some players get coached through conflict, and other players get labeled out of the opportunity. And that's what happened in her case. The difference really isn't behavior. It's kind of what we call perceived value. So if a player is seen as central, marketable, and comfortable to manage, then the conflict is framed as growth. You know, like in the case of you know who. But if the player is seen as expendable, then the conflict becomes disqualifying. And it's really not anything, you know, basketball logic, and that's political logic. You know, I cannot believe out of the 13 teams that was in the league this year that somebody could not have used her skill to put themselves in a better position towards a championship. I just can't see that. You know, and I can't see no one produced any receipts that made her personality or any incident that was so egregious that you don't want to see her coming in the door, even if you need help trying to achieve getting to the playoff or a championship. Just about every team could have used her, and especially Chicago could have used her. You know, Chicago could have kept her and then picked up Centron, and I think they would have had everything they needed to, you know, to kind of go. You know, so, you know, but unfortunately, you know, y'all know politics is, you know, just about in everything, and it determines, politics is one of those things that determine who gets opportunity. So our opportunity was just eliminated because none of the GMs wanted to sit down and i.e. talk to the young lady. Because I understand when she came to Chicago, Spoon sat down and talked with the young lady. You know, I'm sure that Spoon had heard those things too. You know, and I'm sure she talked to her, had her give her the opportunity to explain her side of these few incidents and what happened. And I felt she should have been afforded those opportunities as a young professional when Chicago, the way they positioned her being not signed, they devalued her. You know, they changed her perceived value to almost every other GM. You know, and I don't know if that was a personal attack or, you know, because you're dealing with a person that knows he's incompetent and is seeking power. And those kind of people, you know, they'll do a lot of damage to you. And I just felt like even, you know, she just didn't have enough advocacy, and I just didn't think that was, you know, that was really cool. So,
yeah, Lil, see, this is where Chicago mattered. Because when Chennedy got to the Sky, TSpoon didn't discover a player. She didn't discover a player. She chose a player with the label already attached. She knew who she was. See, y'all remember? See, I like to watch the pressers. Y'all remember that presser? That woman got up to lead. TSpoon was about to lead. Kenny said, "Where you going? Don't leave without giving me my hug." Y'all remember that presser? Y'all remember Chennedy say, "I just wanted to play for a coach that believed in me"?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all remember that? Now think about that. This was her third stop in the pro league. First time she felt like in this league, a coach believed in her. How many of y'all successful at y'all job and your boss don't believe in you?
Mm-hmm.
How long you staying on the job where you feel like you ain't want it, you ain't appreciate it, you ain't believe in it? This is her job she had. See, sometimes we get caught up in because we love the game. But that game is her job. This is her profession.
Mm-hmm.
She should be treated as a professional at her place of work. You know, TSpoon didn't inherit a blank slate. She inherited a resume and a room. So the question isn't, was she aware? She was. I told y'all that. The question is, was she still, why? Was she still willing to bring Chennedy in anyway? What did she see? Not in the discourse, but in the work, skill set, competitive edge, the upside. And let's be honest about the conditions around these decisions. The opportunity wasn't a safety net, okay? It wasn't a long runway. Chicago wasn't this wasn't no stable machine where a coach can just plug the player in and let the ecosystem protect her. Because, see, a lot of times I hear y'all try to play Chennedy like she was like Dennis Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the situation here either. Rodman was brought into a standard. Rodman was brought into a championship team.
Locker room,
Rodman was brought into an organization that had a leader. Rodman was brought into an organization with Michael Jordan. He wasn't gonna play that mess. They were still trying to figure out who was the boss at the Chicago Sky. And not that any of that is Kennedy's fault, but don't try to play her like she was Dennis Rodman either, and that you just plugged her in. It wasn't that. You didn't plug her into some perfect thing that was already working, some well-oiled machine that had already won 3 chips. That wasn't it. That wasn't what happened with her. So stop that narrative too. Because the Sky was shifting. They was sorting identity. They was trying to build community in an environment that kept moving because they ain't even had no training facility. You know, we don't even know we practicing that next week. This is how stable this place is. Okay. I can't even keep my gym shoes in my locker. Okay. Because I ain't got a locker. I got to keep it in my car and just wherever you tell me to pull up at. So even when you got a coach that's willing to challenge the narrative, the environment still matters. Because one advocate inside a shaky structure can't always override a label that's already been socialized outside the building. That's the uncomfortable truth of this situation. The label doesn't have to be proven to be powerful. It just got to be useful. So if labels follow players faster than the opportunity, if they persist without formal discipline and survive coaching changes and roster resets, then we got to stop treating them like accidents. We got to ask the question, who benefits from player labels like these? And why do they stick even when the facts don't support them?
You know what? Teams benefit actually is the team. I mean, you know, look how Jeff benefited from her having a previous label. It made the way he dismissed her seem natural, you know, and that's because he wasn't challenged. He wasn't challenged by the fans. You know, the fans didn't erupt and object to her, you know. they figured, well, if he says she was a locker room problem, because the rumor was she was a locker room problem. I never did figure out what locker room and what was the problem. And remember, they kept replaying this incident where it was some noise behind the interview, and it was alleged she was fighting and all. And then one of these other podcasters said it was a film on the fight, but then they never produced the film on the fight. I'm still waiting on the film on the action. You know, that never materialized. So, you know, a lot of that was her just getting, you know, pulverized for no reason. But go ahead on. I just had to jump in.
I done told y'all. Not at a pro level, but I played on a high school team where in the middle of the game, two of our players started fighting on the sideline. I'm out on the floor playing. Two of my players is scrapping with each other on the sideline. Coach don't know what to do. The referee called timeout. He like get control of the situation. What y'all doing? Now on the outside looking in, people might have would have said, them two people probably don't like each other. You probably could pit them two people against each other. But I tell you what about them two people, you better not say nothing to either one of them about the other, because they'll help you out. Them was two teammates in the problem. Sometimes what you see ain't really what you get. It's the situation around it. This is why you got to understand what happened. What was going on here? Where did that come from? Because the fight didn't even have nothing to do with basketball. This had to do with some shit that took place at lunch on the high school campus. Didn't have nothing to do with basketball. But I say that to say you just never know. Situations matter. Facts matter. Details around situations matter. And I see you saying the WNBA thinks that the WNBA players are replaceable. How foolish they are to think that. But they can keep playing around with them if they want to, and they're going to mess around and find out. They're going to rock around and find out. They're not replaceable like they think they are. But that's where we headed next, because this isn't just about reputation. This is about utility. We're not only going to talking to the people who want Chennedy Carter back in the league. We also talking to the folks who believe her exile was justified. So if you pulled up thinking she did this herself, stick around. If you pulled up thinking the system failed her, stick around. Because this is the part that's not emotional. This is the political part. So let's talk Chicago. Kennedy's last WNBA stop doesn't exist in a vacuum. TSpoon got hired, Black woman head coach with cultural authority, credibility, player trust, a brand herself. Mm-hmm. A brand herself, all her own. And she brings Chennedy in knowing the narrative, believing she can be coached, supported, and reintegrated into the league. Did TSpoon got dismissed? We don't know why there. That's a whole different kind of question. But we said it plain when it happened. This wasn't just a Chicago decision. It fit a bigger WNBA pattern where Black women head coaches keep getting pushed out faster than their counterparts. You don't believe me? Tell me how many. You don't believe us? Tell me how many WNBA head coaches is Black females now. That's okay. We'll wait. But when that layer of protection disappears, the players attached to that coach become vulnerable too. Now, Lil, I know you was hot about TSpoon, because this is where this conversation started. You was hot about her getting terminated, and that's a big part of how, like I said, how we got lit. So give me two things. First, what was the very first thing that came across your mind when it happened, and then how did you connect that move to Sky not re-signing Chennedy Carter and how it played out after?
You know, I mean, I can't tell you how livid I was about the termination, because I felt like the young lady was used, you know, as a placeholder. You know, people kept saying, well, the GM was hired after her, and I don't want to hear that. The GM was in the building. He was on the staff. He simply got promoted. It wasn't like they brought him in out of Kalamazoo. So don't tell me that you didn't know the inner workings of what's going on, because you're above the coach. You next to the executive. You conversing, you know, with the owners and whatnot. And then the second thing was the sneakiness and underhanded that they dismissed her with. This girl had no clue. But when you look back, you can kind of see the tea leaves. You know, the whole organization at the All-Star game, when Reese was first selected, but TSpoon, she's somewhere, Reese got to call her, you know, talking about, you know, what she did at the All-Star. And I'm like, why she ain't in the building? You know, And then you going around trading certain players that may be trade. That was another clue. You know, when you look back, well, Mabry had already requested to be traded. I don't give a damn what she requested. She was under contract. So if I'm the GM, it's just, oh, we just got a half a season to go and you can hit the door. But you're gonna stay here and play because this thing, way they played in Vegas right before the All-Star break, this thing looked like it might roll into something, you know. But you still, and then you got these two young superstars who done came out of college who are attached to her in several ways, you know, not only getting to know to her, but both of their coaches were attached to her. And these are women that they're attached to. You know, so she like a long lost auntie, a cousin, you know, that kind of credibility. You know, and for you to snatch the rug from up under them like that, when you could have waited another year, let her, you know, live out her contract, and then it would have made more sense to the team. Well, we need to go in another direction because we done gave her time to adjust to, you know, having new players and then, you know, time to formulate a team. But the one thing I believe they just knew she was going to be successful. And Jeff and them are the type of people, and that owner, they want control over what they call labor assets. They don't want other people, like they didn't want her to have influence over Angel, but you still didn't stop it. You know, she was just on Angel's podcast. So, you know, that didn't work out. And then I believe they was bringing so much attention. You know, Chicago wasn't ready to have their flaws exposed, but now you got a lawsuit exposing all your flaws. You know, so it didn't make sense. You know, once TSpoon was gone, the whole thing kind of blew up. And of course, we saw what happened. For them to produce that type of record, you know, when somebody poking their chest out like they know what they do, you do not know more than a person that had a lived experience. You know, this man did not live through a pro career. He has no idea what it takes for a woman to have maintained a 15-year, you know, pro career in a league that young. This woman could have really poured into these young girls and help them. And to me, none of them have been the same, you know, since TSpoon left. They all have such a sense of sadness about it and about the way it went down, you know. And then every time, you know, they have a problem, they want to put a black face out there to try to mitigate, you know, the public backlash. That's another thing that I can't stand about this organization. You have never had one male stand up and be accountable, you know. So, you know, I try not to think about it because every time I do, I just get furious, you know, about having that happen to her when her intentions was, you know, nothing but to develop these young ladies, you know, into fantastic Hall of Fame career players that they all could have been.
Exactly. Let's put the facts on the table, not the feelings. Chennedy Carter, top scorer for Chicago during her time. Produced, contributed. She wasn't getting benched because she couldn't hoop. And yet she wasn't re-signed. The justification shifted from basketball to behavior. And it went from production to comfort, from what's measurable to what's implied. One rumor circulated heavy was an alleged conflict with Angel. Angel has not publicly confirmed any serious issue that I know of. I want to be very clear with the chat for that. I don't see a public statement from Angel validating the locker room fracture. I don't see that from either of them. I don't see it from either of them that would justify the exile. So that's rumor culture, not confirmed conflict. Politically, rumor is useful. Rumor does the work without leaving the fingerprints. Do all that work, don't leave no fingerprints. Ain't got no name. Just heard. I heard. I ain't the one to gossip, but I ain't
the mysterious video.
Yeah, mysterious, an anonymous source, an unnamed source. Lil, have you viewed the rumor? How have you viewed the rumor about an alleged Kennedy Angel conflict, and what function do you think it served, and why it spread the way it did?
Unfortunately, it's serving a a purpose of really, kind of discrediting that young lady, especially, when other things happen on the internet, like, somebody tweeted something about the layup situation. I think somebody was evaluating percentages of layup, and then Chennedy, they made a comment that it was important, to do the layups, blah blah blah. And she put on there, yeah, she agreed layups was important, blah, blah. But they turned that into a shotgun blast against Angel Reese. Blah blah blah. Except for Angel Reese never came out and said anything, and that just gave it a life of its own. It just took off. So we got too many politics replacing what's going on basketball wise. We don't have any stability. Everybody, half of the people, I go on other platforms and stuff. It's a real hatred out there for Chennedy, Carter, and everybody swear down they was a fly on the wall. No, she did. I know what her intention was. Even though you can't even hardly prove intent in a murder case, but you can prove intent with with what she's doing and stuff like that. So it's a bad business.
The vitriol with what they talk about this one with is crazy. But what you said about the fly on the wall shit, kills me because we didn't have court cases where it was goddamn video and they still acquitted. It was video. It was a goddamn video and they still acquitted. Stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Y'all know the world that we live in. Y'all know how this works. Y'all know how this works. You can just be because they said that about you. But Leo, in your view, what's the core political truth about how Exile works in professional systems?
You know what? Once Exile works like this, it's not through bans, it's really not through suspension. As we already mentioned, that girl doesn't have any formal suspension. So it works the way Jeff worked it, through a non-renewal, through silence, and through these rumors that never require any rebuttal, because everybody fly on the wall, swear down, this is what it is. And so because there's no formal punishment, the system appears to be fair, but that's not what the outcome is. The young lady is still being bashed, to the point where they don't think it's people out there that don't feel like she deserves another opportunity to be in the league. And I just, how can that be? And I think this is one reason, you wanted to present this, is because, nobody can give a definitive what happened, even though everybody was a fly on the wall. So I'm going to assume the flies wasn't listening or they wasn't watching, because no one can just point out and say, oh, she said, such the so-and-so. She said, even the team members that have left, they haven't said anything definitively about what went on in that Chicago locker room. So the only person that really knows is the paint, because they was there, every instance. But I just think it's kind of a unfair classification.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, this was never about proving Chennedy Carter is perfect. That we're examining how imperfection gets politicized. So we trace college promise, draft investment, organizational instability, label formation, quiet removal, and it brings us back to the core question of, when organizations fail, why do players carry the blame? I'm gonna stop here. Because we were gonna put both of the conversations together, but we right at about an hour, and today I'm on tight time because I gotta get ready to get on the road here soon. Okay. Some stuff I gotta finish up. So I'm gonna put a pin in this one. We gonna come back because the conversation it got deeper than I thought it would be. So we appreciate y'all pulling up and rocking with us. But before we go, we do want to I want to revisit the clip. I want to play the clip. I want us to think about the clip as we get ready to move into the next episode. And what I want y'all to sit with as we get ready to close this, because this incident became the system. I want us to be able to talk about why this moment mattered beyond basketball. So when the next time we get together, we're going to talk about this clip, and I'll replay it again there. But I'm going to share it here now as we get ready to go, so you can to put on everybody's mind what we're talking about. And Lil, if there's some things that you want to say as the clip rolls, go ahead, and I'll chime in, and then we'll get ready to wrap up. So this is the hip check clip. And I want everybody to remember that it was a lot of stuff that went on before the hip check.
Mm-hmm.
There's some banging around going around down here. Now, see, Chennedy got hit right there for the first time. Now it's a little talking going on. They talking back and forth. Okay. Came across. It's a little bumping down low. Okay. Watch it. I mean, we just playing basketball. Okay. Now, you came over. Now, you'd have bumped Benham to the point that Benham pushed you off her, and then you got the hip check. Let's watch it, right? I'm not saying that it was right. Shay, thank you for the super sticker, fam. We appreciate the super chat. We just here with our point of view, but and we're not saying whether it's right or wrong. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying whether it's right or wrong. What I'm saying, let it was like play, and then it was like, oh, we playing this playground time. Okay, you're not gonna just keep checking me. I'm gonna get you. Not Chennedy. That's not when you get your lick back. That wasn't lick back time right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it also wasn't. It was knocked out. You know what I'm saying? Like, we saw the malice in the palace.
Everybody still had their teeth.
We saw the malice in the palace, and people went home for a season, whatever they did. But they came back and went to work, and were still professional and able to go on and be whoever they could grow to be in the league. And this kid is just not getting that chance. So we're going to continue this conversation. Those of y'all that are pulling up in the villa to watch the documentary with us, that'll be taking place in the next 5 minutes. The moment Gamecocks 38-0 season and women's basketball history all in one. Pull up if you got keys and check it out with us. And we'll be back. We'll be back to talk this second half of this conversation. Lil, you got anything before we get ready to wrap up?
No, just you all come on back, because we have got to talk about the incident that became a sentence, and we have to explain why these things happen and why they happen to Black women, more importantly.
Absolutely. And then after we finish this, after we could talk about Sophie Cunningham too. That's a different one. But after we finish this section, episode 3, we'll be dropping episode 3 in this Chennedy Carter series. And that one is every locker room has problems. Why her? And the core question there is going to be, why do Black women get punished for behaviors other players get coached through? Because we got to stop playing pretend. Locker rooms are not peace circles. They're competitive, tense, human, and grace is not distributed evenly. And then we're going to close this mini-series with episode 4, Redemption or Exile, the cost of not conforming. And the core question there is there a real path back, or did the league already decide? So if you missed any part of today, or you want the full context laid out without the shortcuts, we got the recorded discussions and the lives on Cess Talks Sports right here. We take our time and put the system on the table, not just the player. And before we step away, let me say this plain. Fans, listeners, players, the patterns lands hardest on Black and brown women in the game. They need advocacy, protection, pressure to survive these professional minefields. If you see it, move like it. Join the Respect Her Game advocacy group, RespectHerGame.online. Use hashtag RespectHerGame to amplify what women athletes are facing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hype. Your voice and your social currency matters. Sports are never just about the games we play. They're about the stories we tell and the systems we expose. We appreciate y'all. That's Political Ill. Cess Talks Sports. We always sipping the truth and spilling the tea. Y'all stay tuned. Talk soon. We out.